It is Friday, July 19th, 2024, as we record this edition of Things You Might Not Have Heard. I am Jay Cleveland Payne, and in the queue today, 8 stories, news stories from yesterday that you deemed as conversational. You vet them as good stories covering information, politics, current events, and pop culture news. We talk about Donald Trump and his very, very, very long speech last night. Plus, we talk about Joe Biden and his troubles that continue, and Benedict Cumberbatch. We'll tell you how that all works together. We'll explain that and the full vetting process towards the end of the headlines, and stick around for that. Plus, the Benedict Cumberbatch, that's the fun stuff at the end of the show. Stick around for that as well. More information about what we do every single weekday morning at thisisaconversationproject.com, our online home. Plus, email us as you please with questions, comments, and sometimes they're bad tidings. Let's be honest. That can be done at the conversation inbox at gmail.com. 8 stories, as we say, in the queue for the day. Starting off with the biggest one tonight that basically seems like it just wrapped up because he went long. The headline for number 1 this morning reads, the headline at least, Trump RNC speech details assassination attempt. Quote, "I'm not supposed to be here tonight." So let's get that part of the way, and then we'll talk about the actual speech. Donald Trump, of course, survived the assassination attempt, I guess 6 days as of now. It'll be 7 days tomorrow, as we record this on Friday. A young man with a long gun got onto a building and shot at him at a rally. That's plain and simple. You see in the picture here, if you're watching the video, the bandage on his ear, which is still healing up from the shot. Literally, like it was essentially a turn of the head, saved him from dying on that evening. In the speech, he opened up talking about what happened, and he gave the speech. We got a preview of it. There's a big hole there where it says, "Let me tell you about this thing that happened. It'll be the last time I talk about it. It's too painful." And then the next part of it was, and so moving on. So everything that he gave in the speech about the time was ad-libbed, at least, or at least not from the teleprompter, not written out loud, so no one got a chance to get a sneak peek of that. In the part of the speech, the early part, first 20-25 minutes or so, he talked about the ordeal. He was pretty somber, pretty light on tone, and he also brought up the people that were injured and killed in the actual incident, showing some love and tribute to those folks as well. So that's great. And then he became Donald Trump. Even though he talked in a kind of a slower, lower tone, and it was less sort of yelling and crazy and back and forth, there was plenty of yelling and crazy in his head, at least, and in the words coming out, as he determined not to say Joe Biden's name, but they actually said it twice, dropped out a crazy Nancy Pelosi here or there, talked about various things that aren't exactly true and various things that are so much very not true in his speech that was supposed to go about 70 minutes per written and went about 94, I believe. I actually stayed up to watch the whole thing and fell asleep somewhere around the 35-minute mark and dozed off for a good 10, 15 minutes back and forth until I kind of got up, got some coffee, literally, and got through the whole thing. It was long. It was rambly when they got past the early parts, and it wasn't great. Now, some people graded it an A because, he didn't yell and scream at folks. Some people graded it more of a B, C, or D because he did not show the empathy and the unity that he said he was going to. We'll see how this thing plays out. A night that was highlighted by Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off, Dana White taking off his vacation to come hang out with Trump, and Kid Rock changing American Badass to say, "Vote Trump, vote Trump." There you go. Plus some other things happened as well. And, of course, the nomination, blah, blah, blah. Lots of pictures of Trump with grandkids in his lap. Lots of humanizing of Donald Trump on the night. And it wasn't a bad night. The whole convention actually played very well, played fairly nice, and wasn't quite the rip-roaring red meat thing that we expected. And this speech, this was not very much not brief, also wasn't as much rip-roaring red meat as was expected, but there was plenty of red meat as people were hoping not to see, but it's there. Now, many stories today, we have 8 stories to present to you, are connected. The next one is connected to this one, basically about the assassination attempt. The headline for the story at number 2 this morning, it reads like this. Secret Service boss Kimberly Cheatle says she's not resigning after senators confront her at RNC over Trump's shooting. You may have seen the video of one of the senators chasing around the head of the Secret Service, the true head of the Secret Service, basically doing what the reporters do, doing a Mike Wallace on her, asking if she's going to resign, what she's going to do about it. She, being Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle, has announced she's not going anywhere, not planning on stepping down. Demands are coming from many GOP senators and other top Republicans, including House Speaker Mike Johnson. And the former president and his assassination attempt is a big deal. And the security issues out there, as said by many people who are former Secret Service agents or former security, said it's a big deal. Some things should not have happened, and this whole situation should not have come to part. What we do know is that the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was deemed a person of interest beforehand, so someone should have been watching him on something, but something slipped the cracks. Bad things happen. Worse things could have happened. We know that. What we know right now is, by her own power, at least for the moment, Kimberly Cheatle ain't going nowhere. Next three stories are Biden related. Biden related, number one, is direct to Biden, but it's also Obama related. The headline for this one reads, Obama wants Biden to seriously consider campaign as Dem leaders say he could drop out by this weekend. Seriously, and this weekend in quotes. Now, I've been watching commentary all morning, and all the Democrats are saying it's not going to happen this weekend, so there's that. Right now, President Biden is literally cooped up at one of his beach homes with COVID-19, catching it at some rally at work, and had cut stuff short and go sit home and be by himself for a bit. While he's sort of, simmering in that stew, the stew of people wanting him to drop out of the race is here. Those thoughts may change by some based on what they heard last night in Trump's speech, but what we're hearing is rumblings of both Nancy Pelosi and former President Barack Obama telling Joe that you could lose this thing and you should start prepping Kamala for something or some other contingent. As we said, people who are quote unquote insiders all morning this morning are saying Joe ain't going nowhere this weekend. And many are saying, based on what happened last night, they'll just, flip the script and do some more rewrites and keep on going. We have the candidates we're stuck with. Unfortunately, both of them not necessarily great candidates. I've said that the whole entire time, the whole 4 years that we've been dealing with this. So this is nothing new coming from my mouth. But what we're hearing from people out there who have the insight is that change may be coming on this end, whether he likes it or not. Also wrapped in getting some work done. Biden administration forgives another $1.2 billion in student loans, another $1.2 billion in student loans debt for 35,000 borrowers who work in public service. So if you work in public service, this action is part of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Act, PSFL, if you will, which aims to provide debt relief for those who have dedicated their careers towards public service. To this date, $146 billion in student loan debt has been relieved by about 4 million Americans. The effort is part of a broader initiative to alleviate burden of student debt and support for multiple service roles. It's being said he's buying votes, and you could say the same thing for people getting tax cuts. You're buying votes. You're making it economical better for you, and because of that, you should own some sort of gratitude to the person who did this. So while tax cuts for the rich help the people with more money, canceling student debt loan is something that helps people who are literally living with crushing debt. Now, as it stands right now, we will see how this one plays out towards election earring, if you will, and what's going to happen. Many people aren't so happy about canceling student debt because, they racked it up on their own. They should deal with it, bootstraps and all. Of course, many people aren't happy with tax cuts because the rich should pay their fair share and stuff like that. It's two sides of the same coin. It's both sides of the same. It's the opposite sides of the same coin. One coin, two sides. Basically, one side that has a bit more wants to keep more of it, and one side that has less of it wants to get more of it. And nothing's ever actually fair. Equitable is one thing. Fairness rarely wins out in these cases. Also related to Joe Biden, his son, Hunter Biden. And Hunter Biden is seeking dismissal of tax, gun cases, all citing the decision to toss Trump's classified docs case. We may have talked about this before. We may have posted this before, and it never quite made it into the range where we considered it for being a conversational story. We'll explain how that happens after story number 8, how we get that conversational tone. But Hunter Biden is, of course, requesting the dismissal of his tax and gun cases. The request came after the recent ruling in Florida, which he cites in his argument for dismissal of Hunter Biden faces charges of 2 misdemeanor tax offenses and felony firearms offense. Charges as part of an ongoing investigation by federal prosecutors. Essentially, what happened when Eileen Cannon essentially made the case for the documents case for Donald Trump go bye-bye, based on that precedent. Hunter Biden says, I should get some similar coverage. I should get some similar reaction to this stuff. I should get this too, especially since, as many people see, he's being prosecuted mostly because he's the son of Joe Biden, as Trump says he's being prosecuted because he's Donald Trump. We shall see. how these play out. Our next story, going whimsical for a bit before we go serious for a bit. So this is something that's big. This brings up not quite childhood, but nostalgia for college. As back in the day, before we had the internets and things going on, the World Series of Poker was this mystical thing where people just kind of showed up in Vegas, dropped down $10,000 and tried to play poker for the weekend. And a bunch of old, dogged guys with hats, big old cowboy hats, would sit and play to whoever win. That was before the poker revolution, before we watched on poker all the time. People wearing sunglasses and tapping their cards, and of course, rich people, famous people get into the poker craze. Poker craze is not quite as big as it was back then, but back in those days, we essentially come back from the clubs late at night at 2, 3 in the morning and sit there and while trying to wind down, turn on ESPN because Sports Center is usually on, and in this time of year, it's World Series of Poker. Now, it was tape delayed, so if we had a good internet, we could find out who won. But this is what was going on at these times, 30 odd years ago. All that to say very quickly that Jonathan Tamayo won the $10 million prize and the gold bracelet. He's a 38-year-old from Humble, Texas. He said, what in the world just happened when he won? Big for his career, $10 million, $10,000. Whoa, $10 million. Pretty good haul for a weekend of poker. Let's get serious. Let's get real serious. Headline for number 7. Haiti's prime minister orders gangs to drop weapons and promises to take back control of the capital. Haiti's new prime minister, we know the back and forth of that one, a man named Gary Conley, or maybe Canal. When I hear his name in some news articles, I guess I'll get that, but I think it might be Canal, has ordered gangs to surrender their weapons and has promised to regain control of the capital, Port-au-Prince. Canal emphasized the need to free Haiti from the grip of gangs that are terrorizing the population through violence and exploitation. This initiative is a part of a broader effort to restore security and stabilize the country, which has been in quite some disarray for many years and been plagued by gang-related violence for many years. These things coming into serious crescendos in the last couple of years based on national disasters that the nation just has not been able to recover from. And of course, the last prime minister running off to hide someplace, going to try to cut a deal with African nations to come in and police things, and then running off to hide someplace when a guy named Barbecue just sort of takes over and is the spokesperson for the nation. A gangster named Barbecue for a good 3-4 weeks was essentially our official communication with the nation of Haiti. These are the times we live in. And finally, this story here is a very serious story, so I need you to we're going to take a quick beat and go into this one. The headline for this reads, Fandango founder J. Michael Cline left heartbreaking suicide note before jumping from New York City luxury hotel. Now, yesterday afternoon, we lost Bob Newhart and we lost Lou Dobbs, two famous people who died yesterday, and there's a whole lot of love and adulation of them for Twitter and on X and on Facebook for those folks. They did not make it into the range to talk about. Those stories did not make it into the range because it was all over the place. We'll explain that in just a bit. This is a story that's basically a 4-day-old story. On Tuesday, a 64-year-old co-founder of Fandango was found dead after jumping from a 20th floor hotel room in Manhattan. He left a heartbreaking suicide note that read, "So sorry, I can't explain the pain of effing up so much. I love you all." It revealed that he was dealing with some deep regret with things going on, but it took 3 days for a ID for the public to know. So this happened on Tuesday. We found out about the name of the man on Thursday. What is he actually talking about? Well, he's a co-founder of Fandango, which was sold off many years ago, and he was working on a couple different startups because that's what these guys do. We'll probably have more parsing of the article, more parsing of the info going forward to see what exactly happened. And this is one that we're going to follow, and we're going to put it in the feeds. And if you guys deem the updates worthy of talking about, conversational, we'll get them to you here as well. Right now, we are offering the standard thoughts and prayers that we do for these things as they happen. But we also, because this is something that, ironically, something I deal with myself in these thoughts and these feelings, we're going to take this time to add a little time to the show and talk about the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which has upgraded itself from the normal 800 number it was for many years to a cell number that you can text or call. 988. Just dial 988 on your cell phone or text 988 from your cell phone, and you can talk to someone 24 hours a day in English or Spanish about whatever is your problem. They will talk to you. They will metaphorically or maybe literally talk you off those ledges you're into. If you're feeling like something is wrong, no matter how bad you think you've messed up, this is not the answer. Call or text 988 to this National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can check them online at 988lifeline.org. You can look for local resources. You can call a friend, talk to someone if you're in crisis, in severe crisis, and you just don't know where to go. Find somebody, talk it out, because the options that Mr. Cline took is not the right option to take in situations like this. There is a better way. There is a way out. You can work through it. It's possible. So this is the part where we go to our teaser story. And this teaser story is going to have to fight the entire weekend because today is Friday. And what we do for the Conversation Project is we put out news stories every 50 minutes or so on feeds. These are our pages, our links on Facebook and X. For X, or Twitter if you so call it that, it's th_conversation. For Facebook, it is This is Conversation Project. And every 50 minutes, you'll see a various news headline from various sources talking about things. This story right now is out there right now, so you can see it whenever. If you're watching this video, it is there. You may have to go look for it based on how long it took you to get to the video. But this is a headline that may still be going on as we're speaking. It is about 6:06 Central Standard Time, and I woke up to this news, 3 hours ago, working on the stuff. A global IT outage grounds airplanes and sends broadcasters off air. It also is messing up with stock exchanges, keeping people from getting work done in general. It's retailers can't actually run cash registers. The outage is an issue between CrowdStrike, the software company that deals with security stuff, and Microsoft. It's giving blue screens of death all over the place. An update to CrowdStrike is causing issues with Microsoft issues, and there's a fix going for it. Meanwhile, many airlines, some airports are essentially shut down around the world. People can't start trading on the open market so far. Not open in the United States yet, but we'll see what's going on there. And lots of other work ain't getting done right now. We talked a few weeks ago back about the glitch that took down the software services for car dealerships and financiers so they couldn't actually sell cars for a couple of days. This obviously is bigger. When we talk about this one, we'll see the impact as we have to go through all the weekend to get to the resolution on this one. For our conversational stories, today we had 8. On Monday, we'll give you 10. And that's because we have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to go through posting stories on. And all you need to do is go to our feeds we talked about on Facebook and X. Facebook.com/This is the Conversation Project, X.com/TH_conversation. Engage in the stories. Click like, click love, click hate, click on the emoji face that you want to, share it with friends, engage in it, comment to it, and have some conversations in the comments on the forum. And with that, the higher score of engagement gets the better chance of talking. For the weekend shows, we get over 30 stories in a day. So they'll get over 90 stories for the weekend. We'll take the top 30 stories and pick 10 from those and present them to you on the air. On Tuesday through Friday, because it's just one day, top half of the 30 stories, top 15 stories, pulling 8 from those going forward. So these are stories that you vetted, and then we curated them into the order that we think works out for you. If you don't like a story we're putting out there and the way it's going, or you think we should do less of some or more of others, just email us at conversationinbox@gmail.com, and we will try to take those into account and see what stories you actually like to talk about. Meanwhile, this is a section where we do our sponsorship section. And today's sponsorship, this whole week's sponsorship, has been about More Better Media, the larger umbrella for this thing here, and a new book we published, a part of another project called The Big Words Project. Go to thebigwordsproject.com to find out about that. Go to your Amazon machine or click on the link that's inside of the description for this video or audio if you're listening to it, and look for Big Words You Ought to Know, Volume 2, the second edition of the 12-volume monolith that we want to publish over the next 3 years, with 100 words that you can go through, flipping through day by day to learn one, including anodyne and zealot, big words like that. Go to the website and learn more about the Big Words Project. It is it's something that came into my mind, came into my heart, if you will, to do, and we're going to see how well it works. it's working so well so far. Pretty good. Quarters in, or 2 quarters in, and things are going great. Still getting a lot of response. And $1 from each sale of each book is going to a Arkansas reading program. So help out the kids and help keep things funded here for the Conversation Project. Go to your Google, go to your Amazon, search for 100 Words Volume 2 Pain, or just click the link that's in this video and get the current edition, and also get the last edition if you get that one, of Big Word Shot Out. We're going to do 12 of these books over the next 3 years, so stick around with this. It's going to be momentous. Now, quick time to do promotion for the Conversation Project itself. The online home for the Conversation Project is conversationproject.com. Our online home is where you can find us in our various iterations. Now, after coming out of, and basically still kind of slowly coming out of Operation Chaos, that was a move back into a house that was basically torn up by a tornado after a very long period of time. We are coming into some other issues, other life things coming in, other things that are clashing, and some new and old ways of doing things. This used to be a purely live recording, and we're having issues with equipment that we can't quite replace right now. So it's becoming a record and it's replayed. It seemed to work okay, but there's some things we can't do. And the time allotted to make things happen means there's less time for other things. We have been neglecting in the audio a lot, which is where I came from, because our podcast audio is my real love. Neglecting in some of the hot takes going on, including the TikTok stuff. We'll get back on there. But we're looking for you to go find us wherever you can find us, because it helps. So go to the Conversation Project's website. This is conversationproject.com, and find us. Find out where we can be. Find out what we can do. We ask you to do a couple things as well. We're going along, so just kind of go along with this. We ask you to do a couple things with it as well. We will ask you to consider becoming a partner. Now, we give you sponsorship links of things that are affiliate sponsors. If you buy from them, we get clicks back. We also have direct partnerships available at various levels. Right now, people who are in some of those tiers include the Cup of Coffee tier, which is $5 a month, and the Spare Change tier, $1 a month. Joy Winters in the Spare Change tier. The guys that are helping us hold it down as a Cup of Coffee brewers are Harold Braxton, Colby Green, and Eldon Kidd. These are people who decided that what we're doing here is worthy of work and worthy of getting done and want to help get things done. So they get regular correspondence inside of the platform so they can see what's happening and get some more insights of things going on. And we appreciate them. They give insights as well. You can also give your insights simply by just emailing us at the conversation inbox at gmail.com, because it's not so much about them having money and paying their way in. It's really just about them being able to help fund things going forward. If you can't afford to give a little bit every month, that's fine. Give a little bit of time and effort by going to the feeds and giving us the stories to talk about. And of course, emailing us with any comments, concerns, or things like that. Let's move on to the fun stuff. This is time for things you might ought to know for this day, being Friday, July 19th, 2024. And as you see in that beautiful picture, that beautiful man right there, we're bringing up Benedict Cumberbatch, who is 48 years old on the day. The star of many things, including Sherlock, or a version of Sherlock, and of course, Doctor Strange. A British guy who does a lot of American stuff, so when you hear his British accent, it freaks you out a lot. Yes, he is British. He does talk like that for real. Benedict Cumberbatch is 48 years old on this day. Also, Brian May, who's 77. We almost put Brian May into the actual teaser because he had the shortest name, because we weren't sure how long the names were going to go. But we went with Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the teaser link, so we can go for something longer like Benedict Cumberbatch. Brian May, legendary rocker, 77 years old on the day. Also love to Jared Padalecki from that show Supernatural, and apparently it's a big Supernatural reunion because he's apparently got some roles in the season 5 of The Boys coming up in 2 years or so. So him joining in various other members who are on the show, Carl Urban and of course Jason Eccles, who apparently is back as well. It's going to be a high time after if you watch the season finale of The Boys, and if you watch The Boys, you know how terrible it is. Terrible is a good thing. If you watch the season finale and just know how bad it is, get ready for this final season coming up. It's going to be lit, as really. But Jared Padalecki, that guy, he's also a Walker, Texas Ranger. So there's that as well. Birthdays on the day. Going next to our history lessons, things that happened on this day, July 19th, starting off way back in 1969. Apollo 11 and its astronaut Neil Armstrong Edwin Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins went on to orbit around the moon. Of course, Armstrong and Aldrin, the most famous ones because they actually walked on the moon. Collins is the trivia question afterthought in most cases. Most people can't bring up his name off the top of their head, but this is the day that Apollo 11 did its orbit around the moon. In 1985, also space related, but this one a tragedy or start of a tragedy. Krista McAuliffe, the New Hampshire teacher, was chosen as the first school teacher to ride aboard the space shuttle. She wasn't necessarily the first civilian, but she was the first school teacher. And they had and did lots of plans, lots of lessons to get kids engaged and kids get involved in space. Unfortunately, she died in Challenger explosion that happened a few months later in 1986. A few years later, when a year later, when it actually went up, came down in 1986. In 1990, baseball's all-time hits leader Pete Rose sentenced in Cincinnati to 5 months in prison for tax evasion. Pete Rose, great player, not the greatest guy, and it just things catch up to you. Of course, Pete Rose is someone everyone believes should be in the Hall of Fame for his career, for his achievements. But because I bet on baseball, he admitted to it, and it's just the unwritten rule is you don't bet on the sport you are in because it means you're probably betting on your team and maybe throwing games. He is still banned from the Hall of Fame. Your word for the day. Go to the Big Words Project at thebigwordsproject.com for more about the words of the day, and also see how you can get, of course, big words you ought to know. But the word for the day is grudging. Grudging. Grudging means petty or reluctant in giving or spending. As I tell people who are partners in this project for things around word, this is the word that definitely falls on me as we're dealing with a lot of issues that are tech wise and some script wise stuff where right now, yeah, I'm pretty reluctant in spending or giving towards these things. Used in a sentence though. She gave a grudging nod in agreement, clearly unhappy with the decision, but unwise to argue further. You really don't want to do it, but you're going to go ahead and give into it. Grudging. That's our word for today. Our affirmation for today, to help you feel a little bit better, is this. Try this affirmation. My life is filled with joy and abundance. Now, this is a kind of a heavy one, and that was just, it's all coincidence that it's coming on a day like today when we talk about the story of the co-founder of Fandango who committed suicide and was found with a note and what's going on. This was already planned, already picked, already in the queue for today. But this affirmation can help you reduce negative thoughts in your head. Repeating the affirmation, my life is filled with joy and abundance, can significantly reduce negative thoughts by shifting focus towards the positive aspects of your life, promoting a more optimistic outlook. Going back to the story, if you missed it and only see this part of that, go back to the headlines we had in things you might not have heard. And our 8th story was the suicide by the founder of one of the founders of Fandango, found in a Manhattan, jumping off a Manhattan hotel, luxury hotel, 20th floor. Very serious thing. Things can get better. Life get better. And something may sound silly as repeating to yourself that your life is actually filled with joy and abundance. It can help you out. Give it a try because the alternative, not that great. And while it's a little bit crass at this point, we set for today our celebration day at Daiquiri Day with no other actual alternatives because it just seemed like a fun day, a Friday at Daiquiri Day. So for Daiquiri Day, as listed, the wrong slide, sorry, because it's that type of day. Tasting of sunshine and bleak beaches. It might be hard to believe how the daiquiri came to be. Back in 1898, men blasted away in the mines of a small community off the coast of Cuba during the Spanish-American War. One American engineer, Jennings Cox, supervised a mining operation located in the village named Daiquiri. Every day after work, Cox and employees would gather at the Venus Bar. Then one day, Cox mixed up Bacardi, lime, and sugar in a glass of ice. He named the new beverage after the daiquiri mines, and the drink soon became a staple in Havana. Eventually, someone added shaved ice, and sometimes lemons, or both lemons and limes, were used in daiquiris. There is your story in the birth of the daiquiri. That's where it came from. It wasn't always just a little juice put into a little freezer thing that spins around. Actual work put into it. So you know the origins. Today, after the week we've had, might be a good day for a daiquiri. Let's call it done. At least 4 things you might have heard for the week. It is July 19th, 2024 as we wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for joining us for the ride that was things you might have heard and things you might ought to know for today. Remember to stay hydrated, stay limber, stay on task for all the things you have going on, and do what you can to enjoy life. We wrapped up the news today on a very seriously heavy note. I can tell you just from personal experience, people who are in the partnership groups know it's been a very heavy, hectic couple of years dealing with moving back into the house. It's been a hectic week going on with day job issues and life, and going through past from last Saturday with the shots fired at President Donald Trump, going through the week of the convention, staying up late to watch all that stuff so I can cover it for you here. It's been a long week, and it's going to be a bit of a slog to get through this one. And of course, in a few weeks, we'll have the Democratic convention, which right now is all question marks because we don't know what's going to happen with President Joe Biden. All this to say is, it ain't so bad. Life is life, and even if your life is tough, it's rough, it's struggle, the alternative is not an option. So we need you to stay limber, stay hydrated, stay on task for all those things you need to do to stay here. Stay here. Stay here. Love you. Mean it. Prep for the weekend shows. The weekly wrap up is coming in newsletter form. And of course, we'll give you the lineup with stories that came out top. So we'll give you a sort of comparison of the top 10 stories that you picked, plus top 10 stories that I actually picked from your top 10. Right now, as it goes, we got 8 of the 10 stories. We'll see what happens with the top stories for today if they push anything out. But we picked 8 of the 10 stories from your engagement to present to you throughout this week. We'll see how it wraps up once I get a chance to work on that in a few hours. Love you. Mean it. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Come back to be with us Monday. Hug your spouse. Hug your family, even if you're not so cuddly. Hug your kids. Tell somebody you love them. Tell somebody who doesn't expect that you love them. Tell a random stranger you love them and watch them freak out, because that's awesome. And we'll see you come Monday, whether live or recorded, with another edition of Things You Might Not Have Heard.